Hey, Dr. Laura Dabney. This is August, and we're talking about enlivening or spicing up your sex life. This is, of course, a very hot topic in my office. The first week we talked about hidden drains on your sex life. Last week we talked about spicing up your marriage or relationship to spicing up your sex life. And this week I want to talk to you about these solutions that are actually damaging or hurting your intimacy. Okay, a lot of people come to me and have these solutions and they can't understand why they're not working. It's because they're having a little trouble seeing that it's a problem. So for instance, a lot of my patients decide it's time to take matters in hand when their sex life is failing, and they end up getting a little condescending, bossy. And that does not go over well. Even if your partner's not telling you that, I promise you, that is actually pushing your partner away. It's not conducive to a partnership, which sex is. Okay, this can be sort of misconstrued by the person doing it as teaching, educating, helping them with their health, such as you aren't as interested, so you need to go to the doctor. I think you have a problem. Here's some information for you from the internet. You need to read. This kind of approach that the problem is your partner's is not going to work for you. Okay, your partner is going to be resentful that you're doing this to them, making the problem all theirs instead of talking more about what I have this problem, that our sex life isn't what it used to be. Let's work together on this. On the other end of the spectrum, it seems to happen a lot, the other end of the spectrum is also just as bad, being a doormat. Again, I have a lot of patients who think being super accommodating and super yes to everything is somehow attractive. It's not. This surprises so many people that are like this. You can't possibly keep that up. Resentment's going to build at some point because you can't possibly agree with everything. But B, you don't look interested. I always give the example of, think about a student in a class. Let's say you're giving a talk or a lecture and the student's going, Are you really going to say that's a very involved student? What about the student who comes up and says, hey, that was great, but what, that part, can you just explain that again? Or I always thought it was this way. Is it not this way? What about this book or this read? Is there someone that you can give me to read on that? That's an interested person. They're pushing the boundaries a little bit. They're questioning things, but they look interested. So not being condescending, not being a doormat, both those things will help your relationship. Okay, so there's one more thing, which is too much emphasis on sex. This seems obvious, and I get that. People are like, well, we're focusing on what we can do differently, different positions and different that, but it's not working. Well, it may be because that's not the problem. Again, I always say, if you're two consenting adults, nothing wrong with talking about these different ways to have sex, but there's a before and an after. And a lot of people who are in, especially long-term relationships, forget that, or they start minimizing that. Well, that's not the issue. It could very well be the issue. The steps leading up to sex, you can call it foreplay, you can call it setting the scene, whatever you want to call it, is very important to a lot of people. And it may even be unconscious. So if you've tried everything with your sex, part of your sex life, try something to do with the setting or the precursor. Could be you need a longer lead-in time, something you're doing together that then leads to a little, flirting or something, celebratory, setting the scene, getting to the scene, and then having sex. That part maybe have more emphasis, more focus. Afterwards, again, a lot of people are sensitive to you're having sex and then you get up and leave. That may not bother some people, but it does bother some people. And you may not be aware that it's you or your partner. So talk about, look at, try to change afterwards. Maybe a slow breaking away doesn't feel as personal. Maybe you want to take a shower together or a bath together. Maybe there's some ritual that you'll develop that you always do afterwards. So it's a slow separation. Okay? Consider those before and after scenes with your sex life That may also spice things up for you. Okay. Of course, if you have any problems or questions or concerns, we're here for you. 757-340-8800.